Recording. So, welcome to the first Havok script editing tutorial for Dark Souls 3. This tutorial will cover the basics of Havok script and Lua, as well as how to handle those things in relation to Dark Souls 3. Sit back, hope you can learn something, and enjoy your while. However, before, there are a few prerequisite files. I currently have in this folder called HKS tutorial. This will be linked in the video description, so you shouldn't worry. The first file is the file called seed000.hks. This is a decompiled version of the state file provided to us by Catalash. I will be redistributing it because it is not available publicly. I hope no one minds it. Our second file is moveset IDs.txt. It simply contains some data about the weapons that we will be quote-unquote editing during our tutorial, the code behind those weapons. However, we do not need to worry about that right now, so we're going to close it. And our third resource, called useful HKS resources. On the first line, it says that it belongs to this tutorial, the basics. On the second line, simply paste these functions below the update function as shown in the tutorial, and that is what I'm about to show you. However, before that, I'm going to set up a mod folder. I will not be getting in depth, but I have a mod folder right here for this tutorial. It is currently empty and blank. What we'll be doing is creating a folder called action inside of it. Inside the folder called action, we'll be creating a folder called script. Now inside the script folder, we'll be copy-pasting the HKS file that is in our HKS tutorial folder. Pretty straightforward. The next step is for us to open both useful HKS resources and the HKS file we just copied. It is important that we open the one in our mod folder because it is the one we'll be editing. So, exactly as it says, we'll be copying this entire function from hand to function as shown here, and simply copy it. We can close this, as it is no longer necessary, at least for me. You're free to keep it open if so you desire. So, we will be simply doing Ctrl F to open the search. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Something to want to keep in mind of. I was saying something you shall keep in mind of is I'm currently using this application called Visual Studio Code. It is very helpful and you can find it by simply googling Visual Studio Code. You'll find it right here on download. And you can download the preferred version, I presume Windows. It will simply download. Save file. Will be a very normal setup. There is no catches or weird things that will harm your computer. Now, of course, the setup is erroring out because I already have Visual Studio Code running. However, I'm sure you will be able to figure out the install on your own. So, back to what we're doing. We will simply be searching for update, parenthesis open, parenthesis close. And I'm not finding results because I have a typo. I typed updated instead of update, so we'll simply be removing the trailing D. We'll be typing function before update. And here it is. Our function. We copy-pasted the function from the HKS resources before, so we'll simply be pasting it below the update function, as shown here. Make sure there is a white line, or a blank line, however you want to call it, above it and below it. The spacing is important. You should not be in the middle of this function. You should be above it. You should be above modifier, layers, and generate, and you should be below on update. With this said, I will be explaining what this function is. This is a small helper function that I wrote for this tutorial. All it does is give you an easy way to, quote-unquote, tell what kind of weapon the weapon you're holding is. This can be done without this helper function, but it is far quicker to do it this way. I will be saving the file because the function is there and that is good. The next thing we want to do is go back to the game folder and look at, right here the game is unpacked. This is my instance of the game, and I will not be teaching you how to unpack the game in this tutorial. However, just know that if you do not possess all these folders in your game folder, you simply need unpacking. Now, excuse me, but I need some water. With that out of the way, we'll be going in the char folder and copying this NI_ND file c000.NI_ND.tcx. This is important because it will allow us to use the S-Anim Studio. There will be a link to the S-Anim Studio's download in the video's description. So back to the mod folder for tutorials. And right inside this directory, I will create a folder called CHR. And copy the NI_ND file right in here. That is all the setup we will need to do for the specific tutorial. Now, right to the fun stuff. So, I will be opening the game. And I will be opening Anim Studio, its latest release. I'm sorry for the microphone distortions. My computer is glitching out a little. Please do not mind that, as it is completely normal. It might very well happen to you. Here I have opened Anim Studio as well. And we'll just leave that in our background. Because right now we don't need to use it. Not quite yet. Let's give the game a little time to load up. I am sorry, I just realized you can hear the game through my own microphone. I'm very sorry about that. She'll be fixed. I'm very sorry about it. So, I will simply be pressing continue and opening my tutorial character that I set up before this tutorial actually started. And to bring us to the first weapon we'll be working on. We will not be doing anything complex, but we'll be teaching you the basics of attack chains. Or rather, overriding attack chains. Right now this is a completely standard Dancer's Twin Blade. After all, we only have things from vanilla. This mod currently does not contain any modification. As you can see, the entirety of the moveset is completely standard for the Dancer's Twin Blades, including the weapon art. That said, let's get right into the code. Our first step is going to be installing a useful extension. And yes, this will require Visual Studio Code. However, if you choose not to use Visual Studio Code, which mind you, I highly recommend using it. It will make things a lot easier for you. That said, we'll be clicking on these little squares, and they're called extensions, and simply typing Lua helper. You can see it is already installed for me. At the same time, my current workspace is not trusted. That is okay, I can simply click on the shield and press trust. You will see that now everything has become a different color. It indicates the extension is doing its job, and that's something we really want. It's going to allow us to tell if we have syntax errors, and generally make it nicer to code HKS. Our next step is, you might not get those colors as soon as you install and enable the extension. That is why, if you notice right here, it says Lua. However, for you, we'll probably say plain text. And that is okay because we will click on plain text for you, Lua for me. Click on configure file associations for .hks. And then simply type Lua. As you can see, this current association. And I will simply be re-clicking it because that is the correct one. Next step. Our first modification. I'm sorry if it took nearly 15 minutes to get to this point, but I hope you're still following. Our first step will be a very common one, but something that many people might not know how to. What we'll be doing is going to the first one under our one. In this case, it is called attack Right means one-ended. Light means R1. And third. And I will simply be putting an underscore. After, of course, I typed all of this in the search bar to get the proper text function. As you can see, we are on attack right light 3 on update. This is the function that determines what happens after the third R1. So, let's have a little overview of what this function does. All it currently does is call attack common function. It's another function. It is not something we define, but it is part of the HKS file. So, it basically says, first slot, R1. The R1 will be basically, this means that when you press R1 after the third R1, you will go back to the second R1. Because you might not notice, but in Dark Souls 3, the grand majority of weapons do first R1, second R1, third R1, and then second R1, and back to third R1, keeping up that chain. So, this will be R1. Of course it is hard-coded. Currently there is no way to programmatically manipulate what attack plays when you press R1 after your third R1. But it doesn't matter for now because we will be handling that. In fact, it will be one of the main things that this tutorial will be based on. Modifying attack chains. So, first slot, R1. Second slot, R2. Right now, it says that every time you press R2, during the third R1, basically an interrupt, it will trigger the animation. Attack right AV 1 substart. What does that mean? How will be decomposing that? Attack simply means attack. Right means one-ended. Heavy means, AV attack. 1 means the first AV attack. Substart. That is a little complicated. So what is substart? It is a small animation that plays when you do a chain of R1, R2. It is there to ensure that your R1 properly chains visually with your R2. Then there is L2, but not any L2, often attack L2. As you can see right now, I have 2 of them selected. And that is intended, that is not a mistake. Because both of those are technically L2, offhand attack. However, attack left heavy 1 is not a proper attack. While it does exist, it is simply not used. Because this is the L2 that is triggered while you're, one-handed. L2, your quote-unquote offhand R1. Basically meaning attack, left-handed, one-handed, light, light attack. As I said, the left-handed version of an R1. And then simply 1, saying that if L2 is pressed during this attack, with your offhand weapon, the first attack from the offhand weapon will play. The use case of this other one is much the same. However, as I said, it is not properly implemented, as it's an animation. But we'll see that in two-handed attacks, things will be a little different regarding the spare. But that is not a problem for now, because we will not be altering them in this tutorial. This is only an introduction. Next. Attack both light 2. What is that? So, again, attack both meaning two-handed. Light 2. So light attack 2. So, this is what will happen if theoretically we were able to press the two-handed one to win this attack. Of course we cannot, but this is the slot for the two-handed one, which we will call B1 for code's sake, simply because we already have 1R1, so button 1 or bot 1. And the last one is, if from this attack we were theoretically able to transition into the two-handed heavy attack, which you cannot, obviously, it is a one-handed attack. But if we called, then we will be changing here. However, it is the one-handed animation and we only need to worry about right until here. So, R1, R2, L2, and L2. You may have noticed that the weapon art is not in this. And that is because the weapon art is a different system. And that will be likely part of a future tutorial. However, time is running and we shall get started on doing something actually productive. Before that, I'll give you a quick explanation of what attack command function is. Why is this useful? Well, we're about to make it useful. We are going to reach the end line on update parenthesis open parenthesis close, and we'll simply go line down. Then we'll type local R1. Sorry, that was my autocomplete. R1. We'll put an equal sign. And we'll copy. So if you were paying attention at the start, at the start of this explanation, I mentioned that this is the slot for our R1 and that it is currently hard-coded. What we are going to do now is unhard-coded. So, we will simply be doing Ctrl-C, copy, and Ctrl-V, paste on the variable. And we will be replacing in attack command function this entire thing, including the air quotes. Make sure not to forget the air quotes. We'll be deleting everything in the first slot, except the comma, and replacing it with R1. What does this mean? That means that we link this function call, as it is called in programming. Every time you invoke a function, you call a function. What is a function, you may ask? It is simply a bunch of code. Functions have inputs and outputs. And in this case, all this data are 1, R2, L2, Chu ended R1, chu ended R2 are all arguments of this function. These files and through at the end are also arguments, but I will not be explaining those, as it is out of scope for now. So, to recap what we did so far, we created a variable called local R1 and gave it the same value that the slot originally had. Then plot our variable into the slot, or to call it properly, argument, the first argument of this function. So, if I wanted to modify this R1, what is those I called? As an example, I could say that the R1 after the third R1 is always the third R1. This will look quite broken, but it is not broken, since it is what I defined. I'm going to be saving in opening Anim Studio. We're going to go back to our tutorial mod folder and going in char, the file we created earlier. Then opening this nav.ind with Anim Studio. Occasionally while opening something, this window will appear, so you should just say no, as it is unrelated and simply a bug. So, up here, edit, collapse all these sections. But we don't actually need to do anything here besides, well, let's make sure we save. We did save. We'll be pressing reload, forcing game character reload. From now on, we'll be pressing F5, which does the same thing, and simply mentioning that I'm reloading the in-game character. As you can see, when I do a reload, the character disappears for a very short moment in our player character. And now, if I reach the third R1, we shall be able to see. Well, that was a little silly. As you noticed, because I pointed out multiple times, we're editing the one-ended R1. This is actually the two-ended R1. So time to go one-ended and try again. See? Now after the third R1, the third R1 keeps playing. However, that is not useful, and simply a way to showcase what we are doing. So we are going to go back to Visual Studio Code and set it back to 2. Then reload the character to resume proper functioning. You can see that now the chain is standard. It doesn't look quote-unquote broken. Now for the next step. To start the tutorial, we had mivset_ids.txt in our tutorial resources folder. Under Dancer's Enchanted Swords, it says that its day override is 139. That is the unique ID of its special moveset. And its base moveset, base day, being 28 curved sword, which in fact it is true, this is a curved sword. However, 139 will contain all the special things related to the Dancer's Enchanted Swords, like its special ones, like its weapon art. We can effectively consider it as the idea of a weapon as far as movesets are concerned. So we will simply be keeping that in mind. We will need that day override ID later. In fact, for later, I actually mean now. From our local variable, we are going to go line down and type if. Put a space. Then type get. So let's see our helper function. I get weapon. Yes, sir, it is. I just had to type a little more. So, get weapon, they override ID. What this does is it gets the TA special ID of the current held weapon. In this configuration, it will get in the right hand. So, let's keep that in mind. So it will check the weapon on our right hand. Sorry, it will get the moveset ID from the weapon of our right hand. So then we're going to make a space and type a double equals. What does double equals mean? It is simply a Boolean operator. You don't need to understand what that is. But what it does is compare two values. It compares the left value, which in this case is get weapon, they override ID, and the right value, which will be 1. We'll actually go read 139, being the special moveset ID of the denser curse words. Then I will simply put another space and do 10. The 10s are very important, and you might often find yourself forgetting them as you get later in your HKS editing. It is a very simple mistake, and it is a good idea to get in the habit, always making sure that after an if you have a 10. Another thing you need to be making sure of is to end your if block. So I just deleted my 10. Nice. So we'll simply go line down and go R1 equals W attack right. Actually, we'll not be doing that. What we're going to do is actually, after total 1, we're going to start an R2, because we can do that. When we press an R1, an R2 animation will simply play. And that is okay. That is completely fine, and you should not be worried about doing it. However, it will behave like an R2. That doesn't really matter for the sake of the tutorial, because this is simply a showcase. So, we'll be analyzing this, because we've never encountered this before. The only heavy attack variant we encountered was substart. So, attack. It is an attack, in fact. I'm sorry for that cough. I feel a little sick. Right, meaning one-handed on your right hand. Heavy, meaning R2, heavy attack. 1 meaning first. And then start, meaning the starting part of the R2. So, now that we wrote that, we'll simply go line down again. Make sure to close our if block. That is incredibly important. Else, we'll be incurring issues. I will be removing this end. Let's pretend that I forgot it. We'll be saving and reloading in game. To show you what happens once you forget things, I'm going to reload. As you can see, I'm trying to move, but I'm only spinning. If you ever encounter this issue, you shall know that something is broken in your syntax, basically the way you write things in HKS. In this case, I know what is broken, and if I just simply add back the hand to close the if block and reload again, I will be able to move correctly. Now, let's test the change we just made. I will be doing 3 R1s, and then I will be doing another R1, and you will notice an heavy attack will play instead. First R1, second R1, third R1, fourth R1. See, now there was an heavy attack. We could, in just the same way, play... Let's say this is just for fun. We'll be saying... Actually, let's recap. If get weapon they override ID gets the special set ID of the weapon you're currently holding in your right hand, it can be used to track the moveset ID of the weapon in your left hand, but that is not related to this tutorial. So, if the moveset special ID of the weapon you're currently holding equals 139, then it will simply be modifying what the R1 is. The most important part is that all the Dancer's twin blade have the modified R1 chain. Any other weapon is still the same. I'm pressing R1 because I made an exception. That attack will play differently if you're holding the Dancer's twin blades. So, this should be very straightforward and it will be the end of our tutorial. However, right before the end, we'll be doing something else. This is just for fun to show you the potential of such a system. What we'll be doing is redirecting this to, I don't know, let's say the L1. So, tap, both left, L1. Maybe we should do 2. Tag both left 2. This is correct, meaning attack, 2-hander, left-hander attack, second. I will be reloading the game. Now, when we wield the normal twin blades, it will still be a normal R1. But if we wield the Dancer's twin blades, we're going to have a special chain. Of course it will look broken, because there is a single weapon and that is a 2-hander animation. But now we have effectively 4 R1s. That is only a simple showcase of attack chain editing. I hope you enjoy, and feel free to message me on Discord if you have any problems. I will be linking a community called server name in the description of this video. It is where the grand majority of Souls modding advancements are done, and all the greatest modders and toolmakers will be there. Additionally, for the ending credits, as it says right here, the SM studio is made by Miamaritus. He's also in server name. So we'll be simply leaving a link to the Discord server. You'll be able to find me rather easily. My username is NamelessHoodie, just like on my YouTube channel. Well, that should be the end of it. We are at exactly 40 minutes in a few seconds, so we'll be saying it again. Hope you guys enjoyed everything and, well, have fun modding. Bye bye!